it is time to get your cope on, because we may be seeing a brand new digital Yu-Gi-Oh game announced sometime soon. And this is all spurred on by this post from UTC over on Twitter, announcing a brand new TikTok.
That's right.
We have Billy Break going through telling us that we can expect content on the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG, on Genesis, on Master Duel, and Duel Links digital titles, but also importantly, what he says right here, any upcoming products and other digital titles. Look at the gleam in his eye. That is a Billy that knows there is something cooking in Konami HQ. They know they're working on something big. Am I coping? A little bit. Could this just mean they're going to talk about sometimes early days collection and Link Evolution and Forbidden Memories as a retro post, like a throwback to this old game? Yeah, it could do. You know, that could literally be what it is. However, I choose to believe in the cope. There's also some more smaller cope, right? They're releasing a Switch 2 case for the World Championships in Japan, and they don't currently have a game that's Switch 2 native. And that feels weird given that Switch 2 is the new dominant platform in Japan, and so I feel like Konami will want to have something released for that audience as soon as possible. It's a good strategy to have for that country, right? To release a game they can sell physically. We may not see something at Worlds, right? It's a possibility. There's also Tokyo Game Show in mid-September, I think 17th, around then. There's also Jump Festa in December as like your 3 main times for when we could see something big announced. With that in mind, let's talk about and discuss the potential games we could see from Konami. They're going to be very safe options, I think. I don't think we're going to see something like the VR game make a reappearance. From what they said, it was very much a tech demo designed to be taken to conferences, taken to conventions, and that was it. They were getting, you know, some grasp of information from people to see if it's worth, you know, going forward with and doing, but I think that VR is in such a bad spot, right? The cost of entry is too high, and the actual return on investment there is too low. It's a tough market. It's a tough market for VR developers. So I don't think they will go down that route of releasing a VR game anytime soon. But on the subject of Duel Links, I do think it is very likely we could be seeing the spiritual successor Duel Links sometime soon. Because it's getting to 10 years old. In October, it'll be 10 years old. Officially, we'll celebrate in January by the anniversary campaign. But it's getting on. And that's a really good thing, right? You know, 10 years of any gacha game, especially anime one, is really, really big. So fair play to Konami. They've pulled it off. They've done well with Duel Links. But it is going to eventually be time to move on. I'm not saying end of service. I'm not saying that. You know, they can still have the game exist for many years to come, depending on how they manage it. Having something new that's anime focused that can have 2026 development, you know, in mind. You know, they can learn from Master Duel, Cross Duel, Duel Links, all the other games, right? Put out something that's really good, that importantly is going to bring in new players and bring in more revenue than Duel Links makes. Because right now, Duel Links is on a downward trend. All of the games are really, no, like Duel Links' peak was in like 2019, 2020, right? During COVID years. And of course, it's just been kind of going down since then, as you would kind of assume. So they will be looking to eventually, you know, move on, but doesn't mean it's anytime soon. They can still release a new mobile game, right? And work to push people to that game using the Duelist Point service, right? To kind of cross-promote and do things to make it more enticing. What they'll do for another game that's a mobile-focused game that is a spiritual successor to Duel Links, who knows, right? Is it going to be Duel Links 2? Probably not. Is it going to be Speed Duel with skills? Hopefully not. You know, hopefully it's something different. But importantly, it's something not like Cross Duel where it was too different from normal Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that's the thing, is that people want to play normal Yu-Gi-Oh! They don't really want these offshoot games that we kind of all liked back in the early 2000s on the PS2 and the PS1 and the Xbox, whatever, right? It's not the climate for those kind of games for Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore, which is unfortunate, because some of them are really good. Speaking of those, though, we could also see a second Early Days collection. Now, this, I think, the obvious answer is it will focus on Forbidden Memories, the Capsule Monster game on PS1, Capsule Colosseum, Full Spiral Kingdom from the GameCube. You have Dawn of the Duel, I think it is, from the Xbox. I believe it's that. Those kind of games, right? And in that, you've got less games than the first one, but they're bigger games. And also, importantly, they're all fucking different. Early Days had a bit of a problem where so many of the games were iterative sequels. And that, especially with the games being quite shallow from back then, especially in the West, the overall value for that game wasn't really there. So it took a while for the game to sell, you know, in some countries, right? I know America had a bunch of, like, sales down to, like, $20, and then it sold. But in Japan, on the first couple of weeks, it sold 60,000 copies physically, which is pretty good for a collection of GBA ROMs. You know, that's pretty good. You know, it blew past the sales of, you know, the Gorosh game on Switch. So, especially for the cost, a collection like that does make sense to do. It's cheap, they can get out quickly, and it's another game that can add to their, you know, recurring revenue for years to come. Like Capcom, like Square Enix, a lot of companies now are liking having back catalog content to drive up their revenue. Even if it's a small amount per year, it all still works out, right? Even if you're selling games at not the RRP, you're selling them at $20, $25 via Steam sales, it still all is important in modern economics of game distribution. The other option is one I've seen you Everything do a video on, is a GX Tag Force collection. And this, of course, is kind of to coincide with the fact we have right now the 20th anniversary, I believe it is, of GX airing in Japan. We had Season 1 last year, Season 2 this year, and of course next year will be Season 3. We've had promo packs alongside it, right, with the RAR pack, the Yellow pack, and next year probably Obos pack as well. So having a collection of the GX games release is probably a good idea. Now, looking at other collections that Konami have done and game companies have done, they're usually like bundling together games of the same platform, right? So it would be a bit weird for the collection to be GX Tag Force 1 to 3, and then GBA Duel Academy and the DS World Championship game, and that to me feels a bit weird, even though it's all GX, because what you would have done is you would have put Nama Troubadour into the old collection as the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Handheld game on DS, the DM, right? You would have put that in there as well. So I think the more likely thing is they go down the route of a Tag Force collection in general. You get 1, 2, 3 for GX, 4, 5, and 6 for 5Ds, and then special, it is early Pendulum. It is basically getting you up to where Legacy Duelist was on release in 2015. It's around that time. You could then go and put Yugi, Jade, and Yusei on the cover, on the box art, and call it a Tag Force collection, and have that be something that probably is going to sell pretty well. Probably will sell more than early days. Number 1 did, I would imagine. And especially being the GX anniversary, you can bundle it with some promo cards, right? An exclusive Ultimate Neos or something. An overframe would be pretty cool, right? They could do that to drive up sales, and I think that is probably quite likely to happen. But I do think we'll see the classic console games first if they were to do it, but I could see both. You know, it's like a 50-50 of what they do. The DS ones, right, for the 5Ds, World Championship games, I think also could come at some point down the line, but again, those ones I think you could more save towards 5Ds, like an anniversary for them, right? Because those, especially because they're more story heavy for those games, for 5Ds ones. So I think that you would do that further down the line, but we'll see. Anything could happen. Next up, we have a new Legacy of the Duelist style game. Now, I don't mean we do Legacy Duelist Link Evolution 2, right? We don't do that. I mean something built from the ground up that celebrates the 30th anniversary of the game. Because right now, we don't know what's happening with anime. As far as we're concerned, there is no more anime to come. We have DM through to Go Rush, and that's it, right? So what they could do is one game, has both OCG and Rush Duel in one game, so there's no worry about, you know, having to release a Rush Duel game on its own, even though I'd kind of prefer that. But you'd have this game where you would be able to go through all the anime stories. You could even borrow from Duel Links, right? Because in Duel Links we have code for Duel's Kingdom, we have tag duels, turbo duels, action duels, speed duels, you have it all. So you have this foundation of Duel Links, right, that has all the code to make these things work, and so you could have more accurate anime duels than you had in Legacy Duelist, right? Like, that would be pretty sick, I think, to have a game that goes through the entire anime with no weird filler chapters, right? No weird duels and no cutscene dialogue. Just go through it all, start to finish, include, you know, a Rush card and an OCG card in the bundle. And Link Evolution did really well for Konami. Like, first year on Switch, it did 500,000 copies by itself, and then obviously since then, it just continues to sell year over year in sales, right? It's just one of those games that just generates them a bunch of sales year after year. They haven't really got to put much thought into, because it's a one and done out there purchase, right? And then maybe you give an update a year later to improve the card pool, maybe add some more DLC or something, but it's been 7 years since we've had an update for Link Evolution. So I think it's about time we see a new console game, and one that is celebratory of both OCG and Rush Duel all in one go. That'll be big. We could also see a Rush Sim, right? Like, that is like the one thing I think that I would look forward to the most, right? Is a Master like Rush Duel as well was supported. However, the big issue there is Duel Links exists. And at the moment, Rush Duel in Duel Links is a USP, unique selling point for that game. Regardless of how well the format does in that game, it is still USP. and you run the risk of having that game cannibalized for the Rush side of things by the existence of this new game. Now, of course, if you don't care about, losing sales, if you think you can make more money from that audience in this game, then you'd go and do it. But at the same time, you don't want to piss off an audience that you are kind of like trying to keep, right? So I think that you probably, for Rush Sim, if one happens, we wait it out. We wait until whatever Duel Links' successor releases, and then we see if end of service happens a few years' time, and then you have then you can bring in a Rush Duel game, right? Then you could do it. But also, Rush is like this intrinsic part of the Yu-Gi-Oh story now, especially in Japan. So any future game that focuses on anime kind of has to include Rush Duel in some form at some point down the line. It just depends on if it's at launch or if it is years down the line like Duel Links. We'll have to wait and see. And finally, of course, the big one is Cross Duel Revamp Revival. It's never happening. I loved Cross Duel. I do want to do a big video on Cross Duel at some point, probably in September maybe. That might be a good idea actually, depending on what gets announced, right? A big retrospective on Cross Duel, because there's a lot of, videos out there about how Cross Duel failed, how it died, why it died, but none of them tell the full story. None of them were like actively playing the game and had it as their job to cover it for like the entirety of its life. So I'd like to go back and talk about it and do a big structured thing on it. We'll have to wait and see if that is something that is going to come to fruition, but that would be like my fever dream, is if that happened. So we'll see where things go, right, regarding a new digital game or multiple games, right? I do feel kind of confident in that we will be seeing something for the Switch 2 in the next year. I think the timeline just makes sense, right? They want to get in early for Switch 2 sales in Japan. It's been a year already. Getting in on year 2 is very similar to how Legacy Wars had it, back when that came out, and that performed really well for them. So I think they will try to replicate their success there, and I for one would like that. I've been playing the Eject Spirit Caller game on the DS, and it's been a blast going back to a single player game. The game's not very good, but it's been a blast, and so having something modern that is good would be nice to have. I look at something like Master Duel existing as well, and like they've got to be very careful to not cannibalize on Master Duel and on Duel Links. Maybe a Rush game does make sense. Maybe that is something that happens, and they, now that Go Rush is out, they can feel like they haven't got to not hold back the Go Rush game. And importantly, if it was a Rush game, please, for the love of God, have it supported across regions, have cross-platform play, keep the updates coming, because that first one was a bloody train wreck. Anyway, thanks for watching. Your thoughts down below on what you think we could see. Am I coping? Yes. Do you believe in the cope? Please believe. Thanks for watching. Adios.